Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started. I have a little free time tonight, so I figured I would do a little more coding and dive in and see what I can do. So it's been a very hectic few weeks for me, but I figured I wanted to try and get a little bit more stuff done. For those people wondering, I am still banging away on the material design and Xaml project. It's been I'm not intentionally ignoring all of the PRs and questions that are out there, but I am trying to focus on getting some of the more critical release pieces done. So I've been very grateful to everyone who's been helping out, whether that be answering questions on the chat room or submitting PRs and helping people with issues. I really do appreciate all of the extra help from everyone. So don't think that that's gone unnoticed or that I'm ignoring everybody. It's just I've been trying to get some of this stuff done so that the release process can be a little bit smoother. So with that said, that is not what I want. So turn off, turn off. There we go. Turn off. Still had some stuff on from my past stream when we did some coalesce work with ASP.NET. So if people are interested, the information is over on my YouTube channel. Or at this point, it's still available via Twitch. Wow. Hold that thought. Okay. Mountain Dew is a good thing, because clearly I need it tonight. Okay, so the UI testing stuff. So a couple streams back, started in on this and ran into a few problems. And I briefly alluded to the solutions that I had come up with, but I wanted to at least show what was going on. Hang on, it looks like I might be missing some commits, so I might have to push some commits real quick. Just going to do this real quick. So, sorry, I didn't realize that my other machine had some changes that I needed, so we're just going to git push. Let's see, go out and fetch real quick, and then great, pull. Just a couple things. Okay, yeah, sure, go ahead and reload. So the goal with these UI tests is ultimately because right now we can't unit test most of the library. It's just not reasonable to try and unit test UI related components. It's fraught with peril and pain, and it's not designed for it. And so ultimately you really need to interact with the tests in the UI layer, which is how they're expected to work normally. So on this UI test project, before I was running into the issue of trying to click on the list items and dealing with the scroll bar for when items were off view. And I spent a great deal of time digging through it, and ultimately the problem came because I was using a helper method that was in my base class. So that's not it. Go back another commit. That is really tiny. Be bigger. That's better. Did I not put it in here? And that's just testing to make sure things are up. Test base. I really want to show this. Because it is ultimately down in the test base class. So there was a helper method that was going through the actions class that was, did I miss one in here? That was working fairly well, except for when you go through the actions class, it won't automatically scroll anything in regard to, here we go. Yeah, so it's hard. It's somewhat hard to see, but the old code had this helper click method that used an actions and move to elements and click. And the problem with doing that is it doesn't take scroll bars into account. So if you just blindly don't do the fancy thing and just call click, if the container elements are scrollable, it will scroll it into view and then click on it for you. So do the simple thing, not the hard, complicated thing. So I ditched the helper method because it seemed like it was only going to lead me down the wrong path, and instead went with the simple click the button. These task delays are only in here to try and account for, I think I actually need to back them up just a hair. Like, they're working fine, but there is a bit of a timing problem. Because when you click on that hamburger menu, the drawer host has to animate out before these things are actually visible, and so allowing some time for that animation to complete before we go through and start clicky is ultimately what this guy is in here for. The other thing I started doing is there is a demo app namespace in here with this main window. And ultimately, this is the way, I think I had alluded to it before, of going through and trying to make the UI tests a bit more robust and make sense. So effectively, you codify your app. You'll note this project has no reference back to the actual demo app itself. So this here is strictly a way of ensuring that if something in the UI of the demo app changes and the UI tests need update, that there's a single place where I need to go through and update it. So if something about that hamburger toggle changes, well, I can go through and adjust it here. I'm not 100% confident that these are actually necessary. I believe the find calls on the driver will throw if elements are not found. I haven't validated that yet, and because I have C# 8 nullability turned on, just did this to make it happy. The alternative is, bang, to make sure that it works. So need to validate that and clear that out, but ultimately this is here, and this is just done so that we can get some output. This is not overly useful output inside of XUnit, because I can actually just show you here on the unit or on the UI test itself. If you look at the output, you end up with element ID blah 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 blah, right? Which is not overly helpful, but at least it gives me a way of counting. I wanted to go through and display the text of each element. The problem is the automation settings in the demo app are not set up for that, and so the text on all of them is blank, which is not helpful. So we will circle back around to that guy as well. The other thing that I ran into, so that I was not aware of this, when you run tests inside of Azure DevOps, inside of a pipeline, if you start a process, it is your responsibility to clean up that process. It will not kill it for you. So before, we would start up the demo app, and then the pipeline would just hang forever, because this guy was starting the process and then nothing was ever terminating him. So even though the test would terminate, the process would never stop, and the demo app would just sit there and nothing would ever complete. So ultimately what we ended up doing is I went through here, and if it goes through and starts a process, it'll set up this process to stop here. And then inside of the dispose, right here, it'll go through and kill that process so that it's able to stop. The other thing, the WinAppDriver, I did not realize this previously. This is actually built into DevOps. So if you're using a Microsoft hosted agent, there is some very simple commands that you can pass that just say, start the Windows application driver. And then when you're done with it, stop it. So I don't know if this is explicitly necessary to always stop it, but it seemed like being a good citizen. I started it, therefore I should stop it and shut it down and clean it up. So went through and added both of those things in, and that actually got all the way to the point where GitHub, go GitHub, where the pull request in question, again, need to go through and do some stuff, actually runs. And apparently this guy is now in the process of still running. The fact that this is 5 minutes out makes me worried, because that shouldn't be happening. .NET test. We're going to give, oh, it's been running for 5 minutes, but only 1 minute on these tests. So it's worth noting these UI tests are likely to bloat the execution time. I haven't fully decided if I'm going to leave them as part of the normal test execution for pull request merge, or if I'm going to have them running after the fact or something. So this is still a work in progress. So we'll see how it goes. If it ends up that this ends up adding like 10 minutes to the build time, I'm a little torn on whether I want to actually block PR merging while waiting for that. So, this guy finished. We come down here. Test run successful. Test 1 of 1. So the last one that it executes is the UI test. Whoop. Scroll over. Yeah, material design theme UI test. Okay, so that's all well and good, and that is great for UI testing the demo app. And so I've got it somewhat spec'd here a little bit to go through and show off a little bit of UI testing on the demo app, which is good but not great, right? Ultimately, what we're looking to do is catch bugs and actually be able to write tests on issues that have been especially problematic, right? I can think of a few specific areas that we'll probably pick on. So ultimately, trying to catch those bugs by just running the demo app is probably not going to be sufficient. So my game plan is this guy here, right? A separate WPF app, which this guy is almost bare bones, right? He's got some project references to the material design stuff because we need that, right? But my goal is to build out something here, and I think this guy is almost empty. Yeah, pretty much empty. But my goal is to build out this app such that it can hold test cases. So if anybody has ever looked at like the way Xamarin Forms runs a lot of their tests, they've got an app that's its purpose in life is basically to just hold a whole bunch of test cases. Just a whole bunch of test cases. So that way they have a very easy way of going back and verifying when things work or when things don't. What are you squawking about? Are you just unhappy you haven't built yet? So my plan is to go through and build this guy out and hopefully try to make it as easy as possible for people to add in, collapse that for a moment, for people to add in their own test cases. So I don't actually expect people to go through and write UI tests for every bug you submit. Don't panic. In fact, I'm somewhat trying to decide if I even include these as part of the main solution because they have additional dependencies, and I want to keep this library as easy for people to contribute to as possible. And I haven't decided whether that's like a solution filter or separate or if it should just be in the main one. If people have opinions, I'd love to hear them because I can't decide. Again, this adds on extra dependencies. In order to be able to run these tests, you do have to have like the Windows app driver installed locally, which is not something that you're going to get from here. You have to go and actually download and run that installer by yourself. So there is that. And I don't want people thinking that if they don't install it and these tests are failing, that's going to cause their PR to be rejected. So, yeah, not 100% confident on how that's going to go. But tonight's goal is to pick out a use case and start building out this UI test cases app so that it can contain effectively that list. So, where to start? Well, the first part is we need something to do here, right? So something about a grid, column definitions, maybe column definitions with a minimum width of 200, and column definition full, right? Because I'm sort of thinking panel on the left, click down the test cases, right? Something displays on the right. Use that to generate our test. Seems simple. That's kind of where I'm thinking. New folder. How about test cases, right? Okay, so we should probably pick on a bug that's simple to test or that's easy to test, right? And I'm kind of wondering if I do a contrived example like verify that the buttons have the right theme color, right? Which is kind of, it's a very simple one to write, and it's one that we really haven't had many bugs on because if they don't have the theme color, that's a pretty big, obvious failure. We could do something around maybe the dialog host. That could be fun. Well, let's start running down this. I test case. Actually, this should probably live at the root, right? So I'm thinking each of these items are going to be something like test case, which is going to generate me the wrong thing, but that's fine. Interface, sure, you can be public, doesn't really matter. Hey, Metal Slug, how you doing? I'm mostly doing well. It's been a long week or so, kind of worn out. Yeah, I understand that. So, trying to make progress. Feeling like my less than half a can of Mountain Dew is not good enough tonight. So let's see. Task, something about maybe execute the test case. Yeah, that's just the way it goes sometimes, I think. So, ultimately, we need to, and actually, string name, right? Test cases should have some sort of name. I'm trying to decide. Maybe something like this. Again, I don't really know what I want here, so I'm kind of just winging it as I go. Which, this is sometimes when I don't know what I'm building, I just kind of go for it and guess at what I think I might want. Because I've got this dream of having these tests that catch bugs for me so that I don't have to like manually test everything every time. But I also don't know exactly what to test. So there is that. Let's see. Data template. Data type. Nope, that's not data type. Let's try that again. Data type. You still on lockdown, Metal Slug, or you able to actually get out and move around a little bit? Test case. Something like that, maybe. Yeah, something like that. That is not going to work. Glendale. We had a 5 p.m. curfew today. Yeah, I hear that. So fortunately, yeah, I understand that. So for me, I am, so east side of Washington State, so Spokane. But like Seattle, they had curfews and all kinds of stuff. There was some minor, and I say minor, like most people I talk to can't remember the last time they saw a protest in Spokane. It's usually a fairly quiet area, so it was one of those, like, some people will say it was a big deal, but it was, compared to everything I've seen on the news, not a big deal as a lot of other places. Heck, even over in Seattle. And things seem to be quieting down today, which has been nice. Yeah. Yeah, and just to top everything off, Seattle got it very rough. I will not disagree with that. Why am test case is not supported? I know it's not. For some reason, I cannot type tonight or think straight, so there's that. Yeah, I saw that. Like, it was one of those, today I ended up just going through and turning off a lot of social media and notifications because I needed a break. I could only handle so much, and it was like, yep, this is my limit, and we will stop there. XML, NS, local, UI, test cases. Thank you. There we go. Yeah. I can agree with that completely. and I think what we're going to just do is text block, text, binding name, call it good. Right? And I think what we might do is, I'm thinking something like a couple rows where the first row fills the whole space, the bottom row height auto. Oh boy, at the rate I'm going, I'm batting 1,000. Trying to decide the best way to do a UI test case. Is the easiest thing to just do a user control? That's probably the easiest. If it's a user control and it's something that requires like a view model backing, you can just do that in the view models, in the user controls constructor. I think we do that. Sure. Dialog, host, overlay. Boom. Trying to decide if maybe I should actually nest these one folder deeper, right? And have these somewhat grouped. If the expectation is to have a bunch of them. Maybe. Let's see, dialog host. Dialog host. I dropped an S, clear that up. Boom, boom, boom. Cleaned up. Yeah, something like that, I guess. And then I expect this guy to implement iTestCase. Or do I expect it to implement iTestCase? I think so. Ultimately, it's going to end up newing up all of these things up front. Is that a problem? We'll see. We'll see. Because I'm wondering if this, oh, that's a problem if I call this thing name. We'll do something a little more creative. We'll use attributes. Let's see here. How about test case name attribute? Boom. Something like that. Attribute. Let's see. Attribute usage. So with attributes, you can go through and specify what they are allowed to be placed on top of. And in this case, I'm going to declare that this is only available for to be declared on top of classes. So public string name, something like that. String name, and I guess we'll just lambda this guy up. No reason to be fancy. Clean that up, and then that means that my test case. Nope. I can't click. Clicking's hard today. Test case name. Dialog host shows dialog. I might even do that. Maybe I'll get fancy and separate stuff on slashes. Maybe? Possibly? I think? Let's see. Let's see what happens. Okay, so that gets us there. Should probably have new URI. I think the expectation is that this ends up pointing to like a GitHub link. So let's just see. dialog host. Maybe this is a better idea. Right, so here's a great example. Yeah, so we're just going to pick on this issue for the moment. Don't know if we're actually going to write the UI test for it. It's worth noting the expected change there isn't actually workable. And we'll just make this guy async for the moment so I don't have to think too hard. And something like that. Okay, so yeah, I think we go with a view model. I think public class main window view model. Let's see. I don't know if I don't even know if I needed to implement iNotify property changed yet. Because for the moment, the only thing I needed to have is a collection of test cases. So public observable collection, I test case, right? Test cases. Right? Poof. Something like that. For now, we're just going to hard code them in the constructor. Gets new observable collection. Great. Sounds wonderful. And then new, what did I call that? Dialog host something. Actually, no, we don't want to do this because, well, okay, we're going to new this up here for a moment. Dialog host overlay, boom, boom. Which I'm realizing I probably didn't change the name of this to match. Which I should have. Boom. Does that fix it here? It does. Excellent. Which means you should now be able to find it. Great. So we're gonna put it here, but ultimately I want to retrieve these guys via reflection, so that ultimately the only thing when I want to write a new UI test, I should just deal with stuff inside of this test cases and not deal with everything else out here. So that's the goal. We'll see if we get that far. I think we will. So I think at the bottom, grid row 1, grid column 0. Actually, I think in general we do these the other order, X then Y. Grid column span 2, so have it go all the way across the bottom. Boom. And then text block, text, binding, let's just give this name. X name, test cases, list box. Test cases list box. Oh, no. Selected item. Element name. Something like that. So selected item dot URI. No, it was link. That's what I called it, right? Yeah. So that'll toString the URL. And button. Trying to decide what to do about that execute, because ultimately UI tests need to be executed. I just don't know the best way to go about doing that. Button. Like, we could execute them the moment they're selected, but that seems probably premature, I think. And actually, I think what we're going to do is, because this is ultimately going to require, let's see, let's put content in front of command, I think. Content, execute, test. I think this view model now does need to implement iNotify property change because I think I want to keep track of do we pull in an MVVM library? This is always the hard part. Do I? Well, I'm gonna need a command too and everything. Yes, enough of this. We're doing it. So browse MVVM Lite. I am somewhat holding out for their the Windows Community Toolkit for UWP. There's an outstanding pull request they've been working on for an MVVM library that is very, very similar. It's initially based on MVVM Lite, but it is significantly more performant. What are you telling me? What? What's your problem? Is it not? Please don't show me an end use. Come on. I know scrolling's hard for you. Come on. Come on. Maybe this is the problem with running Preview Visual Studios. You can do it. I promise. It's not hard. I know. I hit compile. What have I done? Oh, you're going to come back to me? It's amazing. It's amazing. It's like Windows apps know when Task Manager is opened that they need to start responding quickly or risk getting killed. It's like my toddler when they know that discipline is coming. It's amazing how quickly they start obeying. Come on. What are you thinking about doing? Yeah, Metal Slug, I completely agree. There's always this thought of, what's going to take me longer? Restarting Visual Studio It's thinking about it. It's thinking about it. I understand it's hard, but I apparently clicking on the GUI is a bad idea. Oh boy, what are you doing? So it claims 20% of my CPU is being occupied. Okay. All I wanted to know was why this guy was showing up weird. Okay, so no explanation, none needed. Great, thank you. So how about an observable object, right? Boom. Something like that. Let's see, public I command execute, boom, boom, boom. Let's see, and execute gets new relay command on execute, and I think so. Generate, great, thank you. And then I'm going to need private I test case, selected test case. I really need to get my templates set up on here so that I don't have to type all this. Selected test case. There you go. There you go. Selected test case set. So for anybody wondering, this is just the basic pattern for doing a bindable property. This set method will verify that the new value is different and only raise the iNotify property changed if it is. And then we'll do something like this. If selected test case is not null, test case. So this is new C# object pattern matching. It's the equivalent of a straight null check. And the only reason I'm doing that is because this is an async method, right? Which means this guy has to be async void. So if somebody goes clicky, 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 clicky really fast on the button, it's very possible for them to trigger this multiple times. I'm not sure how much I'm going to worry about that, and worry about like debouncing that, only because this app is expected to be run by the UI tests, and the UI test shouldn't be over clicking. I would hope. I think. So that's my thinking. So let's go there. So that'll do that. Let's see, back on our main window. So we no longer need you here. We just need to bind your selected item. Selected item. Binding. Selected item. Boom. Something akin to that. Last but not least, DataContext gets new main window view model. Boom, something like that. Sets up the collection, binds that through. This guy just needs this item source set to binding test cases. Tired of not getting IntelliSense, so we set up our designer data context. So d : design instance. Its type is a let's see, X type local main window view model. Yes, it's design time creatable, and now in theory I get IntelliSense on my bindings, because now I told it what to expect. Should have done that to start with. Let's see if it works. Because the next part will be going through and actually then wiring up the UI test and codifying this thing. Well, so there's an item here. When I click it, I have an execute test button. So this ain't working because I have a selected item. Thinking what we're going to do here is just turn the width down to 200 because what? Do you not have... Oh, is hot reload not turned on? That could be a problem. I want to edit and continue. Because this guy shouldn't be... Yeah, that's better. So, still not showing a name. That's somewhat expected. I am curious to look at... Sorry, I can't give up my snoop. I saw a really cool... Oh. I don't have the latest snoop. That's a problem. That is a problem. I saw a really cool tweet from Bastian Smith. He showed a demo of a new feature he's working on in Snoop that had both the logical and visual trees available. Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be really cool to be able to see both trees in the same tool. So, since you don't want to play nice with the other children, come over here, toolbar, text block, right? Pin. We'll use the Visual Studio tools for now. Live Property Explorer. Show me what you got. So the problem being is ultimately what I want to see is the let's see. I want to see the data context. So Selected test case is null. So that's fun. So let's jump over here and go look at the list box. So selected index, selected value, selected item, value expression, dialog host overlay. So you claim I just named something wrong, and yeah. So it turns out you got to actually bind to the right properties, and that whole thing about using IntelliSense earlier would have been a really good idea. Let's see here what this ends up. So this should actually give us a reasonable toolbar at the bottom. That's what I would hope for, at least. Click. There we go. So first obvious thing that I'm noticing, vertical alignment center. Oh, don't tell me how to enable hot reload, right? Like I want it on. I know, I gotta go enable it in the preview features, yada yada yada. Okay, let's deal with this guy not displaying any text, because that's going to be obnoxious to me. So binding name isn't going to work because we stripped the usage of that off of there. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a converter. So test case name converter. Make you public value converter. Implement interface. It's going to be a one-way street. So if value is not null, then, well, how about we just do this? If, wow, cannot type. Binding, do nothing. Should it do nothing or should it return null? Probably null, because that means it effectively has no name. So value get type var test case type. So we'll grab that. Yeah, full one. Test case type. Let's see, get custom attribute, and we will grab the test case name attribute, and we will just grab the name right off of that. Return. Yeah, something like that. Clean up my usings. Go up here. How about window resources? Thank you. Local paste. Test case name converter. Boom. And then this guy, converter. Okay, so now we should see our test case name show up. We might get fancy, rather than a list box, we'll make it a TreeView at some point and split on those slashes and other kinds of exotic fun. There were build errors. What were the build errors? Do I have too many of these? Yep. Wonder how I type those in. Try again. Other build errors. Character is unexpected. Oh. Well, don't put one there. So when you leave the path off of a binding, it just defaults to path period, which is the same as path of current data context. So, huzzah! Execute test. Okay. So, let's go through and actually build out this test case then, right? So this guy here is going to do something with a dialog host. Dialog host. So, add the material design. Let's see. Material design. Dialog content. Let's see, how about a grid with maybe a bit of a margin? Maybe rather than a grid, we'll just do a stack panel for simplicity. Stack panel, text block, some text. All right, button, content, close. All right, so this will be that. Let's see, and we will do static material design dialog host close dialog command. So routed command, so it'll just walk up the tree until it finds a dialog host and then close that thing down. That works there. The content that we are going to wrap is going to be, I think we'll do a stack panel again, vertical alignment center, horizontal alignment center. And I think what we will do here is we will have button content show dialog. And I think what we're going to do is automation properties, automation ID, show dialog button. So we'll get back to this automation ID when we write the UI test. I'm just preempting it because I'm pretty confident we're going to need it. And then this will be close dialog button, because I want to make sure that the UI test can actually act on the dialogues and work. Be convenient, right? And then I think what we're going to do is button content. Wow, it is not my night. Test overlay. So overlay button, because I think the plan is going to be to try and click this button, right? And then if I'm able to click it, this thing is clearly not, the dialog host is not covering it, because this is bugs that we've gotten before, right? Either the overlay not appearing or whatnot. Right, so this actually is testing a case that we've seen in the past, so it's not as made up as I thought I was going to be. And then we are going to have a text block, and we're going to give him a name. Result, text block, boom, 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 text. How about clicks? Actually, how about we do a binding, right? Let's make this interesting. Nah. No need to get fancy. Clicks, colon, 0. Actually, we're going to just strip the text out completely. We're going to do this all in code behind, I think. No reason for MVVM for this, because this is ultimately testing this. And so let's get this guy going. So this guy's command is going to be static material design. I wonder why that is so bad at IntelliSense. Dialog host show dialog command. Right? I know you exist. Oh, it's not show, it's open dialog command. See? Maybe IntelliSense wasn't lying to me. I'm just bad. Let's see. And then this, I'd like to rename. Oh, fiddlesticks. Stop being a pain. Test overlay click, right? Test overlay click is there. Private void. Set click text. And I think what we're going to do is just something simple. Private int num clicks. Right? Something simple like that. What did we call that? Over result text block. Result text block text gets clicks. That way we only have one place we need to do this. This guy can do this here. Make sure it's set initially. I think this guy has probably got very little to do. I think we can probably just get rid of that for the moment, because I don't know if this guy has any setup that he needs to do, but I suspect I do want this for other tests. Maybe it's a bit of Yagni and I should get rid of it, but clicks, increment, set, click text. Okay, simple, easy. Let's run it and make sure it actually works. Oh, it won't actually work because we haven't written anything to actually show this guy yet. That's a bit of a problem. We should fix that once you figure out what you're doing. Come on, compiling should not be a hard thing for you. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Yeah, so ultimately the problem being we select this and nothing happens over here, right? So I'm thinking, in the interest of simplicity, the easiest thing to do is a content control. Let's see, grid column 1, grid row 0, and the content will be binding to the select test case. Seems simple enough, right? I think so. Maybe, possibly. We're going with it. So now, I wish, please launch in the same window. Okay, so we test overlay. I can click. I can show a dialog. If I try to click on that button back there, it isn't going to work. But now it works here. So I am realizing there's a bit of an issue with if the thing tries to click on that button, this thing's going to line up exactly there. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to change this test case just slightly, since currently we don't have a good offset for the positioning of the dialog. We always just have to assume it's center. Horizontal alignment left, right? That way we can confirm that if we try to click on these buttons, the overlay does not fire and does not work. But I believe the UI test can still read the element just fine. So, right, show dialog, clicky, 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 no worky, close dialog, clicky, 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 works. Perfect. So, that's the test we want. We want to verify that when the dialog's up, we cannot click the button. When the dialog's gone, we can't click the button. Easy mode. Easy mode, easy mode, easy Okay, so I think we want to let's see. Let's go through and start the UI testing now. So rather than demo app, we're going to go add new folder, UI test cases, add class main window. Okay, so this guy here, I think the only thing we really care about initially are these two bits are the only overlap. So the driver is ultimately the bit of the UI test that is what interacts with the WinAppDriver server that then marshals and does the Appium or Selenium integration and does the actual mouse clicky. Okay, so we'll need to populate this with some elements that we want to click on. We'll get to that in a minute. I think the other thing is I think I want to rename this to call this demo app tests. And with that, I think I want to break up some stuff a little bit, right? So I think I want an app class here, and because ultimately right now this guy is hard coded to hunt for specific things. I don't think that's what I want, right? So this much is very much hard coded to the demo app, right? And then where is the, yeah, and then the start app one is very much hard coded to the demo app. And I don't think I want either of those. And actually, let's bring this app class up. Yep. Because I think what I want to do is take some of these bits and separate them. All right, so I want this guy to live here, and I want to do something like this. So public string demo app path. All right, so he's gonna ultimately do something like this. Because I think if we just do the big long string and then we'll make the base class deal with breaking it into the individual file name and working directory. Yeah, so something like that. And then this will be, let's see, rather than demo app, this will be UI test app path. And so rather than main demo, this should be UI test cases. You'll note right now I'm just hard coding myself to the net core version of the app. I don't know if it's worth testing the .NET Framework one too. So far to date, I don't think there's been a single bug that hasn't recreated in both. So I'm not sure it's worth the extra time and overhead when I've yet to see any benefit from it. Let's see, test base. And I think I'm going to just have this guy take in string app path, right? Boom. App path. So we're going to configure these guys out. String app path. Boom. And actually, let's do we should check this guy for null just to make sure nobody does anything. Add null check, please. Nope. Check those. check those in the right order, please. Output came first, so it gets checked first. So then this becomes app static, right? There's no reason those need to be instances. Demo app path. Technically, right now, this can be a static class. There's no instance members on it, so we'll leave it like that. Let's go through here, and let's take a quick look and see where this guy is going. So this is going to be, let's see, get directory. Boom. Of app path. So the get directory name method is somewhat misleading in that it's not just the name of the directory, it's the entire path down to the directory. Get file name. This one works as expected. Let's see, app path. Okay, so that disconnects us from that. That disconnects us from that. Great. Break. Just want to verify that I haven't broken anything yet, so run, and hopefully this guy just works. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. Lots of compiling. Lots of compiling. Lots of compiling. Come on. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. For anybody who is interested as well, I did post this on my Twitter, but I am going to be speaking at a .NET user group coming up on the 11th. So if people are interested, it is a free event. You just got to sign up via Meetup. And as soon as I figure out where the heck my chat window went, there's the link there. Again, you can also find it on my Twitter as well, if you just want a straight link into it. Come on. What are you thinking about so much? Why is this hard for you? Visual Studio, do you need a reboot? It bothers me that this should... I'm kind of wondering if this guy has lost his mind, given that these two things clearly aren't in sync. We're going to just reboot Visual Studio. I believe it is slowly losing its mind. So let's go back here and try again. Yeah, so not necessarily, well, sort of general unit testing. So it's a talk that I've done in the past. I tried to record it before and botched the recording the first time and lost all my sound. So hopefully there's a recording if people can't make it. It's going to be sort of everything from starting from the basics of writing unit tests, specifically then working up to a pattern called Port Adapter Simulator, which is what I favor using for a lot of my unit tests, as well as using mocks and things like AutoMocker as well. So sort of a bit of a progression of start from the base and then kind of build up to it. So that is the goal. So it's mostly around how do you structure your code to write unit tests, and how do you then write good unit tests once you've done so. If that piques your interest at all. Cool, yeah. Definitely jump in. All I know for certain is that they do their streaming via Zoom. So as far as exactly how it's going to be streamed and how that's going to work, I don't know yet. So I know some of the people who run the user group, and they asked me if I'd be willing to speak, and I was like, sure, I'd be happy to. And they're like, how about on the 11th? I was like, sure, that sounds fun. Let's do that. System cannot find the file specified. So, well, it's right in the thing that we changed, so that kind of makes sense. Noticing this is probably wrong. So we'll see what we're passing in for the app path. That looks reasonably accurate, at least for my system. Let's just pop that path open. Yeah, that looks reasonably good to me. What did you end up setting up on the process info? So the working directory. Oh, I think the working directory wants the slash on the end. And then the file name. Wait, did I? Oh, I looked at the wrong thing. Okay, never mind. We're fine. We're fine. Working directory, file name. Yeah, so I think the only issue here is plus path get, what is it? Separator character. Yeah, directory separator character. So let's back this guy up. Set next statement. Step over. What is your problem? System cannot find the file specified. Well, why not? It's there. We just looked at it. I'm going to just stop and relaunch this, though I'm very confident that that's set up correctly. That looks identical to what it was before, I thought. Let's clean this up too. Make sure we aren't getting... So it goes hunting for the file name, doesn't find an existing running one, says okay, let's go and create. It verifies the file exists, right? So it puts the working directory and the file name together, right, and verifies file exists. So when this guy says file doesn't exist, it means something's wrong with our process info. System cannot find the file specified. So something is wrong here that wasn't wrong previously. So let's just hypothetical try something here. So UI test cases, no, this guy. Not that one, this guy. So if I put you back how you were, before it was combining, got it. So this guy here should just be app path, not get file name. That's likely the difference. So run the unit test. And by run the unit test, I mean run the UI test. Go out, start the app. Hey. Goal! It still works. Okay. So demo app tests. Can get rid of that break statement. So you now work and have been decoupled. Yay! I think what I'm going to do is extract this little bit of code out into this constructor. Do that. Just so that I still have the same little bit. This is mostly just as a sanity check to make sure that the driver that the base class creates can actually in fact find something on the app. So not strictly necessary, but let's see. Trying to decide if I just do it. Well, do the simple thing first. Do the simple thing first. Stop getting clever. UI test. Let's see. Test base. Generate constructor. Except for I don't want this, and I want you down one, and I want you to be app.ui test apps path. So something like that, and then we can write a test. Public void. Trying to decide, because ultimately there's going to need to be some correlation between the things in this test case folder in this app and down here, and I'm trying to decide how to structure it. I'm wondering if these guys should really end up I'm wondering if I should do this, right? Let's see. Method must have a return type. Oh, because I renamed the class. And I'm thinking this is test cases. I'm thinking this is probably the most sane way to do this. Dialog host. Well, maybe not strictly necessary. Maybe we just do it at this level, right? And do dialog host test, right? So because each thing in here is going to be an individual test case, this file will contain all of the test cases inside of the dialog host namespace. Seems reasonable. So this guy then derives from UI test case base, right? Generate me a constructor. Not a lot of thinking involved there, and then I don't have to worry about this guy setting it up. That base class is providing minimal value. We might add in something into this constructor to make it a little more useful, but we'll wait for now. Let's see, fact public void when dialog host is shown, overlay prevents clicking. Sure. Not a huge fan of that name, but not a big fan. Okay, so from here, ultimately this guy is going to want to get himself, well, for the test itself is going to look actually somewhat similar to this, right? Step one is going to be get a hold of the main window. So get a hold of the main window. On the main window, so main window, I'm going to want to go get test case, right? And I'm going to want to hunt it by name. So probably the same name that exists over here on the attribute, I think. Right, so I'm probably going to want to hunt it by this. So paste. Let's see here. So this guy here exposed the list items as Appium web element. We'll see. Let's see, test case. Alright, so that guy's going to want to hunt that out. Yeah, sure, get that. We're going to want to do test case We're going to want to click on it, right, to select it. And we're going to want to go main window execute button, click that. All right, and this is basically just the setup for our test. Okay, well, let's get this much working, right? Feels like a lot of setup, but we might have to go through. Hey, Samu Mars, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome to the stream. We're just doing some UI testing on material design in Xaml. So I am not much of a SDET, so UI testing is kind of new to me. So feel free to ask questions. I'm kind of learning it as we go as well. So it's a new exciting adventure. So let's start with the execute button because that's probably the easiest one to implement. So on here, this is actually going to be very similar to the hamburger element that we did. And I think what I want to do is I want to test if I actually need these exceptions. I think we can just do this and be done with it because I'm fairly confident that find element by name throws. So execute button, right? And then let's go see what that thing is called. So we made a button down here. And let's give it an automation ID. Automation ID. Execute button. That sounds good. So this goes here, right? So if we fire this up, so usually the question is, how do we define what these magical strings are? So I have this lovely app called Accessibility Insights for Windows. Wow. And it likes to be on top for reasons unknown to me. If you set that, then you can pause it. Let's see, that is not what we want. We want to collapse you. Go, find me my execute button. Wow, so this is a whole lot of nada. Our toolbars might be problematic because the toolbar is not exposing the button I want. Well, that's a simple fix. That's a very simple fix. So step one, come back here. Nope. Hide the obnoxious blue circle and stop tracking. Thank you. So at some point we should look at the toolbar, but in the interest of time, stack panel, orientation, horizontal. Poof, problem solved. Bring you back, and then hopefully go ahead and turn highlighter back on, bring you back on screen, start hunting, find me the button. Okay, so worth noting, now we have a button. It has a name of execute test. I'm surprised the automation ID is not showing here, but I believe we can still hunt it out by automation ID. So let's go back to our main window, not you. Find element by name. I'm curious if this actually finds it. So what we are going to do is run this test with just this much, right? And verify that we can lock onto that guy and grab him. So stop debugging. And this will also verify that we can launch the demo app as well, which would be very convenient. The other thing we may have to do is XUnit a lot of times defaults to wanting to run tests in parallel, I believe, so we might have to do some don't run my tests in parallel work. Okay, so do you find the execute button? Yeah, element could not be located on page. So find element by name didn't line up. And so I'm a little, so we should be able to find it by, let's see, find element by accessibility ID. Why is ID, I believe you do something like this. I think what you do is find element. Boom. I believe this is how this works, right? Because this takes a by thing. Yeah, so let's give that a try. Run. Worth noting the app is running over here, by the way. I just had it floating off on my other screen so that it wasn't in the way. Okay, what is your problem? An element could not be loaded on the page using the given search parameters. I am surprised. Why? So I have a feeling that if I do execute test, this will work. I'm just surprised that I can't hunt it by automation ID. I would have expected to be able to hunt it by that. Also worth noting that I can go and get rid of the exception throwing when it's null. So you'll note the mouse went down to click on the execute test, so it was able to find it. Okay, so that'll work. I'm going to drop the accessibility ID here, or the automation ID. I'm going to ask one of our SDETs tomorrow and see if somebody wants to educate me on why that doesn't work. And demo app, we can just do exclamation point on all of these, because these we know will not be null because it throws if it is. Okay, so a little cleanup there. So this gets us the execute button. Let's take a look at the list box that we want to grab. So you come back over here, come back, you hit go. Okay, so the list view needs something that I can lock onto. Alright, properties, this guy has a scroll. Oh, what are all these used for? This is new. Synchronized input, selection. Okay, so let's jump back over here. Turn off the obnoxious blue rectangle. And I think what we want to do is look at this guy and see what we can do. I want to try, what else is on this guy? Automation ID, item status, item type, name. Betcha this is what we're supposed to set. Test case list box. Right? Fire that up and let's look and see. Because I bet you that now shows up here, which would be very convenient. Come on, you over here, go. Yeah, test case list box. That's what we want. So now I've got a fixed ID there. Public Windows element. Test case list box, and we will do driver, find element by name. Boom. So something more like that. And that will let me get that, but what we really wanted for all of this is something that let me query that and get a test case by its name. So what we do is we come up here and we add ourselves a little nice helper method. So public Windows element get test case string, right? Because this is ultimately what we want, and we want to use the test case list box. We want to find element by name, test case. So this is just going to be a quick, simple helper. Looks like that. Find element by name. This wants to be Appium web element. Okay. Web element. Sure. Different namespace? Sure. Great. Okay, and I guess we can inline this because I don't think we really need too much checking on it. But that now gets our test case up and running. And then what we need to do is make sure that this guy appropriately labels each of these. So I think what we just do is automation properties, name, binding, relative source. Actually, do we even need to set these? I'm curious. Well, I'm curious if it can find it without it. So we're going to try running this. It might be able to just find it by name, given that that's the text property of a text block. It seems reasonable that it would probably find it. And it did. Huzzah! Okay then. Green checkboxes all around. No more working involved. Okay, so now the last thing we need to do is actually wire up the actual test itself. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to click this button, verify that it shows a 1, or maybe we verify a 0, click the button, verify a 1, show the dialog, attempt to click the button, verify it still shows a 1, close the dialog, click again, verify it shows a 2. That seems pretty reasonable. That'll cover a decent number of dialog host failure cases. So, yeah, so we've got you there. So let's do private. I'm trying to decide how much to just code straight into this test versus how much I want something reusable. I'm thinking I might just code it right into the test here, and the moment I need it reusable, refactor it into another object. So I think we'll start with that. So var, how about click result text box gets main window. Do I not have a reasonable? I guess we just go straight to driver. Find element by name. Great. That, and we want the result text block. Let's just drop result text block. Boom. I think what we're going to do is make you not nullable and assert that you won't be null. Okay, so assert equal, because we set it to what? Clicks 0. Clicks colon 0. Result text block text. Right? So I'm going to start there. Let's see. driver find element by name, and we want to grab our other button, which is going to be test overlay. Nope, that is the method name. Oh, and this needs to be name, 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 like that. And so you are going to be test overlay button var test overlay button, right? Let's see, go like this, do the bang. Great. So, and then we are going to click it. Test overlay button, click. Do the same assertion, only validate that we have now incremented by 1. Right? Then we will grab the, let's see, show dialog button, which has the name of show dialog button. How convenient that it matches what I thought. So let's see, is driver a class from Microsoft? So not from Microsoft. So there is a, and let me actually get you the, so this is going to be a long answer to a simple question. There is a outstanding pull request on the library here that comes from this branch. So here is the branch that I'm working from on my fork, and specifically the code that you're looking for is down underneath this material design themes UI test, and specifically this test base class. And I haven't pushed the changes that we've been working on here, but driver is ultimately coming from Appium, which is the Windows application port of Selenium, which is a UI testing library. So it's ultimately driver is this Windows driver class, and its purpose in life, there is a Windows app driver that is listening at this address. And so this is just communicating with that local server that's responsible for moving the mouse and clicking and typing and all of that fun jazz. If you are interested in the setup that I did for it, let's see, YouTube, I can spell my own address. There is a video I did, let's see, this one here. I'll drop it in the chat. In the description, there's a bunch of links. So specifically the two things that I'm using, the WinAppDriver and the accessibility insights, both of those are linked there as well. So, sorry, long answer for a simple question, but it's worth understanding. So yeah, the driver class itself is sort of the root level client that communicates with the server that does the clicky, so that you don't have to actually do a lot of thinking about it. Because you'll note, as soon as you get a hold of this element, you can just say, go click the mouse on it. I don't want to think too hard. Do this, because it'll even scroll that element into view if it's out of view, and make sure that it's there. So if this test case ever is, we get a long list of them and it's scrolled way down, it'll scroll for me, find the element, and then click on it for me, which is great. So let's see. So show dialog button, click, right? And then ultimately, right after that, we want a test overlay button, click as well. And I think what we might do is we might just throw a small delay in here, right? Only because the displaying of a dialog has that animation, and we want to give time for that animation to complete. Await, task, delay. And I'm somewhat tempted to just go look real quick at what that delay is. That is the wrong project, and we should try again. What is the delay on a dialog host? So themes, dialog host. So let's take a look. So ultimately, about 3/10 of a second is what it takes. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to delay for time span from seconds, and we're just going to pass half a second. So only because even though the storyboard is set for 3/10 of a second, there can be a small, like, depending on how fast my system's running, it can hang up a little bit. So just a little bit of buffer time to make sure. Ultimately, you don't want to buffer too much because that just slows down your whole test. So we want to verify that when we click on this button, no change, right? And then what we want to do, and this is the one that I'm really sort of curious in, is can I get a hold of the close button? Because ultimately this guy is going to exist in a pop-up window, and I don't rightly know how that's going to work. So hopefully I don't have to think about it and it just works. So that would be convenient. So we're going to click on this, right? You'll note I'm not actually testing for various elements of the dialog host. I could go through and test this, but I sort of favor more of the behavioral style tests for UIs, because ultimately I don't care about, is the overlay visible, that kind of thing. What I really care about is the overlay preventing my clicks, right? Like that's sort of the bigger concern at the moment. Let's see. So then ultimately I want to do, actually I kind of want to do all of this, right? So I want to give it time to let it close. I want to do the click again, and I want to verify 2 clicks. So that's a big long test. Okay, so what I am going to do, not all of that jazz. So I'm going to Control F5 launch this UI test app, because the base class that I wrote is intelligent enough to detect if the app is already running, and if the app is already running, it'll use that. So this way, hopefully I can position it where I want it. And whenever running UI tests, hands off. Because you tweak that mouse and you misclick, and then all of a sudden your test fails. So when running UI tests, no touchy the mouse. There it clicked. Okay, so failed almost immediately. But you'll note it did get down to execute test. So that's a positive. Let's see. So an element could not be located, blah, 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 blah. So the result text block was the first thing that it failed to find. So let's take this guy here, start him up, and see what this shows up as. So this guy's name property shows up as clicks 0. That is almost worthless. Almost completely worthless. So it's inside of custom, which I'm assuming is what the user control must generate as. This guy. Did I not give you an automation ID? That's not what we're looking at here. Automation property name. I did not. Okay, so that is our first problem. Is I tried to look it up like this, and for whatever reason just assumed that X name would work. So automation properties name. So that does not work for text blocks. Seems mostly reasonable. I'm going to just unselect that with a control click, and we will relaunch and see what happens. Hands up. Click, click, and then failed again. Well, what is wrong now? Oh, probably because I changed the code and did not recompile the app. This is the one problem with leaving the app running, is not everything updates. So must recompile the app when you make changes to it. I know, that should go without saying. What is it? Control-Alt-Enter? I'm going to try this one more time. I think it was Control-Alt-Enter that lets you remind Windows what monitor to open something on. Apparently not. I should really keep track of that. Okay, so run. Sorry, off topic. Is it possible to get a Win32 app, maybe WPF, the event click on a folder in Visual Studio Solution Explorer? Ooh. Let's see. So if I'm understanding correctly, you're wanting to know when somebody clicks on an element inside of the Solution Explorer. So a couple thoughts. There is the internal way of handling it and the external way of handling it. The internal way would be a Visual Studio extension. And I know you can get, with an extension, I know you can get a hold of the various tool windows. I don't know to what level of control you have over them once you've gotten access to them. So specifically, I know that other extensions are able to go and augment, say, this context menu on elements in the Solution Explorer. So I assume you have some level of control. So I guess it depends on what you want to do with that click, right? If you want to do some manipulation based upon the element, I would think that a Visual Studio extension would probably be your best bet. There's sort of the external way of doing it where you do like some low-level mouse hooks and try and watch the mouse, but that is a lot of fraught with peril. So unless there's a reason why the extension method wouldn't, or the extension for Visual Studio wouldn't work, I'd probably tell you to start there. If that, assuming that helps. Really only want the current path of the folder selected. Yeah, take a look at what's available to you. So let me look real quick, because there's documentation, Visual Studio extension. Because where have I seen this before? Blah, blah, blah. No. This is probably more akin to what we're looking for. So this is where it gets a little weird when you're doing the Solution Explorer stuff, because you sort of modify from the outside. You don't necessarily act on the Solution Explorer itself. I think Solution Explorer, I think there is a way to get at it. Yeah, so this looks more akin. This is sort of the namespace that I would expect it to be in. Be aware that different versions of Visual Studio, depending on what you target, you have to deal with the different references there as well. Solution Explorer, yeah, so something akin to this would at least let you get there. And you have to be a little careful, because once you grab the selected item from the Solution Explorer, at that point you're dealing with effectively an MS Build object. And so this project item properties, if you look at MS Build full path project item, this will yeah, project items, native references, project reference, compile. This area of the docs will start to show you the various properties on that would be available on there, but you have to be careful, because different items will have different properties. And so this this project item probably ensures that you've selected a project node, but be aware that you might run into some fun issues with different languages, different project types, and the new Solution Explorer where you can open based on folder rather than on project. I feel like there's probably some null refs right about here and here that are possible, but I don't know that for a fact. So my gut would say I would be null checking the dot after full path and the dot after value, or the, I guess, dereference operator. So if that helps point you in the right direction. So let's see. So expected actual. So that's not very nice. So we wanted to get the text. Yeah, no problem. And I definitely don't mind off-topic questions. I will warn you, if you stray outside of the C#.NET world, my expertise is limited. But within that, I usually have at least opinions. They may not be right, but I have opinions. So apparently the text property is now going to come back. So back here, right? So we'll fire this guy up, and we'll look at this. So result text block. So apparently once you set up a name, there it overrides the text. That's exciting. Listen to events, properties. I kind of want to get the text property off of this guy. Why is this hard? Let's see. Framework ID is dialog is enabled. Edit my event. This is not quite what I was anticipating. I suppose the alternative is we could always just retrieve the element based on the text property of it. That feels kind of yucky. Ugh. Because then you don't get a useful error message. I'd rather the... Okay, so let's see what else we got on this guy. Tag name, click, displayed, enabled, execute. What does execute do? Executes a method. That's exciting. Okay, I gotta look. So, Appium, WPF, text block, get text. Find controls properties using Appium. That sounds blah blah blah. Let's see. Get attribute. Toggle state. Oh, so get attribute exists on there. Okay, that's cool. So get attribute. Text. Will that get me? I'm sort of hoping. Let's see. Where did my? Oh, did I close it? Let's fire up accessibility insights real quick because I'm very curious if. Hey, stop helping me. I'm very curious if I can go through and grab it because you'll note this clearly works targeting Visual Studio, which is great half the time. Okay, so there. Because this doesn't tell me. This doesn't tell me a lot about this element. So include all properties. Configure properties to always show. Oh, hey, that's kind of cool. So show me the automation ID. That sounds helpful. Do you have a text property that would be helpful to me? Let's see. That is, well, there's a search bar. Let's use the search bar. Text doesn't appear to exist. Okay. is control element, blah, 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 blah. What's live setting do? Let's turn that on. That sounds like fun. It's worth noting that because Selenium was originally written as a web automation framework, that you will find some of these properties just flat out don't apply to WPF. So that's part of the reason for some of it. Not all of it, but some of it. So you can zoom, can move. Yeah, shoot, save. So that is helpful, I think. But now it comes back to the idea of I want to set automation ID. And now if I launch this, right? Close. I keep closing it down. I need to stop doing that. You, there. You, sit. List view. Execute test. Why am I not getting you to show up here? I got you there for a minute. Come on. Go back and show me that. I want to make it work. What is going on? Oh. This delay is killing me. What are you doing? Pause. Apparently you just got to get the focus in there. Okay. So automation ID and then name. I don't know what live setting is being used for, but that's nice. Yeah, we'll turn that on. That's fine for now. So process ID, blah, blah, blah. So if I am able to look up by automation ID rather than by text, then the rest of my test works. So find by, seems like that should be the winner, right? Seems like that should do it. So we're gonna Control F5 that guy up again. Turn you off because you just seem to get in the way, right? And then run. Hands off the mouse. Go find it. I want you to work. Pretty please. Oh, so it did find the element. This now failed, but I think I can do text on it now and have it work. So I'm going to come up here and unselect it. Not that for this particular test it should make a big difference. But I think this now works. Boom, boom, boom. Test success. I win. I win. Yes. That is what a UI test is supposed to do. It's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you very much, Sam. Yes. Okay. So we'll fix the name of this because that's a little bit of a typo. This lays it out. Okay, I think this is finally at the point where I would be comfortable at least getting something checked in. I think the last little bit, because this at least shows how it's supposed to run. So the last thing I want to do is XUnit running tests in parallel. I want to ensure that we have it turned off. Yeah, so it'll run. Yeah. Assembly. This guy. I want to turn off all parallel test running. Because for UI tests, there really can only be one at a time. Where to put it? Might just put it here for now. So let's see, using XUnit. Boom. So there, tests won't run in parallel. We've got this thing starting to be coded up. I think this is probably reasonable. There's probably some fancy stuff I could do with XUnit, because you can roll your own attributes, and I kind of wonder if I could automate this portion of the test away simply by doing that, right? Which might be nice to not have to think about this at all. Perhaps. Maybe. I think. But alas, it is 11:45 at night, and I should probably not get too creative when I've got something working. So I think the moral of the story here is commit and push. So getting UI tests running from UI test cases app. So commit changes, push, and that'll be at least out there. Oh, there was one more thing we wanted to do. There's always just one more thing, right? It was actually look these guys up. So rather than having this be hard-coded here. So let's just do that real quick, because I think that won't take long. Let's see, type of, well, assembly, get executing assembly, which will give me this one, get types. Let's see, where the type, let's see, is, what is it? Is assignable from, let's see, I always get this backwards. I believe it's type of test case, right? So yeah, and then select. So that'll get me the type, and we will do activator create instance from the type, right? And cast it to test case. We should probably do a little more filtering, and is class, right? And not X is abstract. So minor amounts of filtering, right? And then for each I test case in this big assembly link mess that we are going to create, right? Test cases, add test case. Boom. So then this just becomes instantiation. Okay, let's just make sure that works. I might have this assignable from backwards, but I'm pretty sure it's base on the left. I always have trouble with this. Hey, look at that, it works. Yay! So, little reflection. So now all anyone has to do is add it here, and then add appropriate tests here, right? And not saying that there needs to be a one-to-one relationship between the user control that demonstrates what you want to test and the tests themselves. There could be multiple tests for an individual control, right? So just as a thought. And actually, I think what I do want to do, initially I left this execute empty. I think I do want to, if execute is called, I think I want to reset num clicks to 0 and then set click text, just so that if we do want to reuse this control multiple times, each time that we call execute, it'll effectively jump back to the beginning, because the execute method we're using as our test started, for lack of better words. Okay, so let's see. Updated UI test cases to load tests via reflection. Is there anything else? Where are there two files in here? Dialog tests properly reset each time they are used. Cool. It's really interesting. There are a few WPF Xaml developers. These streams help a lot. Glad to hear it. I did notice, like, since I've been working on the material design in Xaml, I've had a lot of people say that it's somewhat difficult. And to some degree, it's because WPF's been around so long. A lot of people, I think, just lost interest and moved on, which is really, really unfortunate. So I think it is helpful to go through and do this, and I am always happy if there are questions or comments or demos of things people want to see. I am very happy to get sidetracked. I always have my own agenda of what I work on if no one's around, but if people have questions, I very much enjoy answering questions and going through and showing things, because it's worth actually making something that that people are interested in watching. So cool. Well, thank you guys for joining in. I appreciate the questions in the chat. So I am in Pacific Standard Time, so West Coast U.S. So for me, it is almost midnight, and unfortunately, I tend to stream about 9 p.m. to 11-ish p.m. On nights when I'm available. The 11 p.m. is not a firm stop time. People who watch regularly know that I end up going till midnight on occasion. If you are interested, Twitch only keeps my recordings for a short period of time, but let's see, YouTube. My YouTube channel also has all of the recordings, so if you are interested, you can always go back and watch all of my old stuff and see. I try to keep things organized. There's a specific channel on there for material design in XAML and WPF type content, because I do bounce around and do other projects as well. But if you are interested in WPF stuff, there is that. I have high hopes of putting together some more like tutorial videos rather than just recordings of live streams, but that requires free time, and free time is at a premium right now. So we'll see how that goes. I unfortunately have a wife and 2 kids who I also have to allocate plenty of time for. So, but with that, I think I am going to head out for the night because my Mountain Dew supply is empty. 1:53 a.m. So what is that? Central Standard Time? So somewhere middle U.S. I'm guessing. And yeah, so Mountain Dew is my go-to energy, and when I run out of Mountain Dew, that's definitely a sign that I need to stop coding because I'm probably done at that point. But yeah, thanks for coming and hanging out. It's Samu Mars. Is that a fair way of pronouncing it? Yeah, GMT -5. Okay, yeah. But I appreciate having people come out and ask questions. Like I said, I enjoy going through and doing that kind of stuff. So I think I am going to head for bed and hopefully get a little bit of sleep. But hopefully I'll see you on. Usually Thursday nights are my scheduled streaming nights, but when I find time, I like to do these ad hoc ones sort of whenever. So unfortunately I can't give a lot of advice aside from subscribe to my Twitch and follow me on Twitter because I'll usually post things if I know when I'm going to start doing some streaming as well. So with that, I'm going to sign off, say thank you very much for everybody coming and hanging out again, and we will see you all again. Get some sleep.